What's the scariest location you've ever visited? Went through the wrong side of Cleveland by accident. Got approached twice by groups of sketchy dudes while at a red light. Blew right through both of them. Blue Mist Road, near my hometown. It's out in the backwoods of Pennsylvania, north of Pittsburgh. It's not really a road, driving on it is like off-roading. Gravel lined with massive potholes/craters that is not maintained. There is an enormous tree that stands out on the road, and has been said that tree was used by the KKK to hang many people outside of their ideology. The lore is the place is haunted by their spirits. My senior year in high school, my buddy and I decided to go check it out. We took my piece of shit Datsun 310 down the road. We had to drive so slowly or my car was going to fall apart. We started out laughing, but it got quiet in the car pretty fast as we approached the tree. I would have loved to just floor it and GTFO out of there, but the road made that impossible. It's dark, we are in the middle of nowhere, and it's 1987. No cell phones. It was honestly terrifying. I can still hear my buddy asking/pleading to go faster. His voice several octaves higher than his usual. This is not a short road either. In total it was like a 10-minute drive that felt like an hour. I don't quite remember what this place was called, but my dad used to be a pastor at some church. Because of that, I had to stay with him on weeknights because he needed to prepare for the sermon on Sunday and talk with the team, leaving me, a 7-year-old, bored with nothing to do for 1 to 2 hours. Well, anyway, I got his permission to explore the church one night, and started to go off on my own. I went through a few rooms that didn't mean much to me, a kitchen, supply closet, etc. But then I opened a new door, one I'd never seen before. I opened the door and found this old nursery room. Thinking about it now reminds me of some of those liminal spaces that you'll see in certain places on the internet. The lights in that room were barely working, and the room was full of old wooden toys, some faded, scratched up wallpaper, and a carpet that was partially detached from the floor. I was in there for probably no more than 10 seconds. After that I got too scared and noped out. A small town in the Texas Panhandle. We were looking a hotel and the only one we found was closed off due to construction, so we drove around looking for another one. We found an old school motel that might as well have said rape and murder motel. This place was horrible looking. Gave new meaning to the phrase. Hole in the wall. Probably the crack house my uncle took me to when I was 15. They were using a Ouija board trying to contact the dealer that got stabbed to ask him who did it in Fayette. When we left, my uncle called her a filthy gypsy whore because she wouldn't front him. I felt fucked from all the crack smoke, like I was in a lucid dream or something. An emergency breakdown at a butcher warehouse alone in the middle of the night. Carcasses hanging everywhere on meat hooks, silent, dark, and felt like I should be looking over my shoulder while doing repairs. I got off at the wrong subway stop in the mid-90s in Brooklyn. I walked into a Burger King, and it was like the record scratched, and everybody stopped. An old man came up to me and told me you're in the wrong spot and I shouldn't be here. I walked out, and 2 cops asked me what I was doing and directed me back to the subway and told me not to get off the platform until the next train came. Yes, I was a white male teenager. The church I went to growing up. It was well over 100 years old and was Gothic Revival architecture. Nothing but stone, tile and brick with lots or ornate wooden carvings and gold relief. It was beautiful. However, there were all these twists and turns. Tunnels and odd, almost secret passages you could explore as a kid. Whenever we were in certain areas there was always feelings of being watched. A presence in the room. Lurking. Maybe God is real. Anyways, this place had a couple classrooms where I saw my first shadow people. Scared the crap out of me. Always down this hallway, a dark shadow would be standing in an empty classroom. I got balls one time with my brother, and we checked it out, and no one was in the room. I would see that shadow figure in various rooms. It got to the point I wouldn't go to certain areas of the church alone. I stopped attending church when I was 18. An old hotel from the 1800s in NSW. I went to bed, turned everything off, then woke at midnight to the TV showing a young girl around 5, scooping the eyes out of a dead kitten with a spoon. A male voice then told me I was to go for a walk, then said strip. I left the hotel and walked up a side street shivering, then remember thinking I would be locked out. But I followed a neon sign and the door happened to open for me. The girl was still on the TV and I quickly turned it off and jumped into bed. I didn't sleep much. The Colorado Museum of Prisons, or better yet the very first gas chamber that my state used. They actually have it there at the museum, and although it's stated everywhere that you're not supposed to go inside, I actually did, and it was very creepy. The old TB asylum in Kalamazoo, Michigan before it was torn down in 09-10. It sat on this huge hill overlooking this big cemetery, and the only way in was either climbing a rope or going in through a manhole on the property. We kept hearing stuff walking around above us, but when we would go check it out we would never find anyone. We even would split up to try and catch people fucking with us, but never saw another person outside of our group. In 1990 an American, was visiting my sister in Barcelona. She worked evenings teaching night school English, so I was hanging at her apartment with her roommate. Lucy asked me if I wanted to see Barrio Gótico, the oldest section of the city. So we took a walk through streets that were absolutely medieval, dimly lit cobblestone alleys, stone walls with iron bars on the windows, doped-out seamen lurking in doorways, that kind of thing. This was before they fixed up most of the city for the Olympics. It was rough. Lucy, a Basque woman about 4'10", just strolled along like, no problem. I was terrified. 15 years later, I had to go back to my country or my village. Our house was haunted. We all knew it, and when I was child, every night I would pray God so I don't have to see that man. Ghost. Anyway, we finally left, and years later we were back there, and my dad made us all sleep in that house again. Damn, that was a long sleepless night with dark and huge spiders crawling around. I am arachnophobic, thank God, didn't see that man. I used to work overnight at a very large hotel in Dallas, Texas. I would roam around by myself a bit when I got bored and ended up in the basement hallways. These halls were the length of a football field and completely dark. I don't really spook easily, but thinking about the stories of a handful of deaths on the property will get your imagination going. I don't explore much, but definitely the backrooms of a mall. It was after hours, so besides for one part of the mall, it was very empty. The cold, white concrete mixed with the buzzing of lights and other electronics, utterly empty hallways, and never-ending corridors just created this sense of overbearing unease and the need to just run in whatever direction just to escape. I escaped my Saturday's English lesson and I took the train. I went to this odd-looking mall. I was big and well-lighted, but something about it just felt off, like entering myself to one of those liminal space images. I don't know if it was the fact that I was one of the few persons in there. Almost all stores were closed, or that it was pretty far from my school and house. I ended up taking the train again and going to another mall, closer to my school. Z Ward in Adelaide, Australia, a former hospital for the criminally insane that was closed in the early 1970s and which has a reputation for being haunted. Went on a tour organized by a local paranormal investigation team, and the moment we got inside I was instantly gripped by the feeling that I really didn't want to go upstairs, a feeling I have never had before and hope never to have again. The Great Sand Dunes National Memorial in Colorado. Went in February, late at night, around 2 a.m. The parking lot was empty. Me and my friend got out and walked up the dunes. It was a cold, moonlit night. Eerily quiet. We saw some weird lights further back on the far dunes. Glowing bright then dimming, moving around faster than a person with a flashlight, which we thought at first they were, until one shot up into the sky and just vanished, smaller than any star. Got back to the car after a couple of hours. Slept in the car until daylight, and the gift store/ranger station opened. Felt like we were being watched until the sun came up. Went on a gambling marathon, playing 21 at a local casino. On the third day, I had to really go, so off to the bathroom I go. Man, the relief I felt was awesome, until I hear women talking? So tired, didn't realize I had gone to the women's bathroom. Didn't hesitate in speaking up, telling them I was there and why. When I got done, which was quick, the ladies just looked at me and no security people were called on me. Got my money from the table, cashed out and left. No more marathons like that since then. The suicide forest, even looking past the moss that consumes everything, the unnaturally twisting trees and creepers, and the unusual amount of spiders, it has this arcane essence that subtly creeps into your mind like an entity from a horror film. My emotions just flung from somber calm, melancholy, and irritation without any change in stimulus. Had constant urges to go off the path which I entertained until I found myself locking eyes with a big gray snake that was in my path. I'm not religious, but be it a god or demon, there is something in those woods that want to keep you there. Visited an abandoned summer camp in a forest near where I lived at a time. I took a different route home, and by the time night fell I was in the middle of a swamp with Zbigniew Preisner's Decalogue on blast. It was getting so dark that the details around me started getting blurred. Up until then I didn't know that a 2-hour hike could turn into a 20-minute run.